Hello, welcome to the latest Ask the Cabinet podcast with Peterborough City Council. I'm here with the leader, Councillor Dennis Jones, and the Cabinet Member for Children and Education, Councillor Katy Cole. How are you both? You both all right?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm enjoying the slightly warmer weather, although it did rain a little bit earlier on. But let's hope we're in spring now. Just to mention that the last one of these that we did last month, we had getting on for 7,000 views across the various platforms, across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So people are paying attention. Thank you for watching, for listening, however you're doing that. Usually we do this in the town hall, but today we're at the house project as well. I think, Councillor Cole, it would be good for you to explain exactly what the house project is for people and how well it's been received, because it opened, a month or so ago?
So it was opened at the end of January, and I couldn't be prouder of the fact that we are here at the house project today, sharing this information with you. We are the only local authority in the east of England to have a house project. And today, the DCS, John Gregg, and the project manager, Hayley, actually explained and delivered what the house project is to all lead members and councils across the east of England. Lots of other councils are interested in what we're doing here, and I'm quite excited to share with you. So the house project is designed to support care leavers, so that's children, young people who are coming towards the end of their care journey, around about the age of 16, 17 years old. And the whole premise of this project is to equip them with skills that can allow them to take on a tenancy, their own tenancy with their own accommodation. That's the overall goal at the end. But along that journey, there's lots of steps they have to pass. It's an accredited qualification, which means that if they were previously classed as not being in educational training, this is education and training. So it gives them that skill, it gives them that qualification, teaches them how to balance budgets, how to plan meals based on the budget that you've got, who to go to if you've got a problem with the tap or a plumbing problem, what to do with the washing, how to sort that out. In my opinion, it's sort of wraparound care that as a parent myself, I would give my own children. And that's the whole point of this project. This house project here at the Chauffeur's Cottage, it allows the young people to drop in. They eat together as a unit once a week. There's currently 13 young people that are taking part in this project. It's a project that runs for 6 to 9 months. Within the 6 to 9 month bracket, if they've passed all the qualifications and the milestones, they'll be put forward for a tenancy. Now, Peterborough is a growing city, as I'm sure has been reported before, and sometimes young people can be really find it really hard to know how to apply for housing, how to get a tenancy, what happens if it's a private tenancy rather than a social landlord. So that's what this project's here to do. And not only will it be better for the children in Peterborough, but it will be better for our care leavers. So I couldn't be prouder.
Yes. The only thing I'd like to add to that is this building was previously occupied by our Peterborough Metal, our arts and culture people, and we now want them to get involved here. They've been entirely supportive, and it will be great if we can get people interested, in addition to all the life skills that they're going to learn. Then if they get some skills for life as well, if any of them have any interest in those things, and the more people that share that journey with them, the better.
Well, thank you for that. And it was noticed as we came in, there were people downstairs, young people using the facilities and things.
Yeah. So the house is open all the time. Hayley, who runs the project, she's backed up with 2 facilitators. They offer group sessions, they offer one-to-one sessions on a whole range of different topics and themes that as an adult, somebody who I've been very fortunate, my parents supported me all the way through. They still do now at the age of 42. And that's where I want this project to go. We are all corporate parents here in Peterborough, and it's our responsibility. They're our children, and so we need to look after them.
And it's the location very central to Peterborough as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously what happened with metal, and that was, if we could have had a different solution, that would have been
absolutely. But they've worked with us. They haven't worked against us, and that's a real feather. And also, I mean, when I got the phone call, I was on holiday last year in Cornwall, and I couldn't have been more delighted, notwithstanding the fact we had tenants in here, but I couldn't have been more delighted with the location, and I was thrilled to bits that we're here, we're so close to the city centre, transport and the town hall, it just couldn't be better. So, delighted.
Okay, so moving on to something else that's quite exciting. We've got a number of events that are coming up, notably something at the museum. That's something you're quite quite into. Adventures in Time and Space, which is an independent celebration of over 60 years of Doctor Who, highlighting the craftsmanship of behind the scenes and showing how the monsters were made, moved and scared generation after generation of children and maybe even a few adults. Over 120 monsters, props, costumes and spaceships. Adventures in Time and Space is what it's called. So Dennis, this is something you're quite excited about, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, I, as I mentioned, I've grown up with Doctor Who. It's been part of my life for the whole of my life. And there's two things that make you feel old, John. One is the fact that I remember the very first episode and the very first Doctor. But what really makes you feel old, it's 20 years since it came back.
Really?
I just said sort of 10, 15 years, but no, it's 20 years. And when virtually all the Doctors, you've seen them in other things, and they've gone on to do other things. And of course, the regeneration of Doctor Who is one of the iconic moments of television. So yeah, I was, known it all my life, grown up with it.
But my son and my daughter and we're going along, but I think it's really the big adult in my life that is more excited about coming along. But anything that sparks that imagination, curiosity, can take you to places that are unbelievable, because it is within Doctor Who. And I think one of the things that has been really interesting since the revamp of it, how the episodes start out quite normally and then something slightly weird or scary happens, and with the Daleks. So no, I couldn't be happier that it's coming, and it's certainly something the big adult in my life is very interested in coming along to.
Brilliant. Just to, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a national exhibition in Cardiff, and they were getting 35,000 visitors a week. We'd be happy with 10% of that, but hopefully we'll be getting an awful lot more. So it's a real coup for Peterborough, and I take my hat off to the people who've made this happen. I don't think anybody knows who Jeff Cummings is unless you realise he's linked with, and again, for an older generation, yes, Wings, Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton, Cat Stevens. So again, I've grown up with all these artists, and you don't realise that these people, they had album covers, and one of the most coveted things was when vinyl was in its in its prime and its pomp. The album cover was just as important as the contents. So for somebody like Jeff Cummings to have an exhibition of his artwork is a big deal. This guy is a somebody in that field. If anybody wants to know anything about Tony Hancock's Steptoe and Son, I'm your man, because again, this is all, for people of my generation, a little bit younger and certainly older, we grew up on this when there were only 3 channels. And this was, and I think it's the first time that Radio Times have done something like this. So this is, again, another real big deal for Peterborough.
It's really exciting. As a teacher myself, I know how important it is to engage in reading. And I think only yesterday I was meeting with the Literacy Trust, which works really hard with lots of schools across Peterborough, to develop that love of reading, love of text, love of pictures. It not only helps with language acquisition, it helps with imagination. But here in Peterborough, getting children to read actual physical books is really important, and it's something that is an issue across other areas across the country. But most people pick up an iPad or a Kindle to read books. So to physically have a book in your hand, spend that 10 minutes reading with your child, not only does it promote bonding and family support, it just opens your world to things that you couldn't possibly imagine in a day-to-day life.
I would call it we're on the way. Peterborough as a fast-growing city, entrepreneurial city, to attract acts that are going up to Edinburgh Festival, to find spaces for them to work the routines, would be. And Tom Dexter has been keenly involved in this, and I take my hat off to the guy. And he came out with a wonderful line. He said, Nick Heitner is willing to be a sponsor. And he said, do you know Nick Heitner? I said, I've heard of Sir Nicholas Heitner, who's the former artistic director at the National Theatre. He said, that's the one, And when you've got people like that, and just going back to the book festival, people like Simon Callow coming here. This was where Dickens performed outside the Angel Hotel, because back then they didn't just read from their books, they actually acted them out. So for somebody of the calibre of Simon Callow to come here, this is something. My brother, he lives in the Midlands, and he's already said, book me a ticket. And I think that will be an absolute winner when it comes. And again, if we can get the Fringe up and running, spaces in pubs, clubs, anything, we just get that engagement, a vibe in the city. And, it will be such a great way for people to go on to Edinburgh and put us on the map.
It's really sad. The thing is with fly tipping, I mean, Dennis and I, and with our colleague Jason McNally, we're ward councillors for Dogsthorpe, and people that are within our ward will know that we regularly, weekly, go round and check the hotspots, report the fly tipping, and on the odd occasion when we've found names and addresses, we've reported it to the authorities, and they've been followed up by officers within the council. But those addresses are not addresses of people in Peterborough. And fly tipping is awful. But in terms of Peterborough City Household Recycling Centre being used by people that pay their council tax here, I think the permit scheme is really important. And we're not the only city that has put this in place. And I know that the officers here will challenge and chase fly tippers when reported and when there is evidence.
I think the major thing is we don't know until we try.
Yeah.
And one of the things we have to do, first and foremost, we are Peterborough City Council. We have to look after the needs of our residents first and foremost. And for every action, there's a reaction. And we have to deal with that. And sometimes we have to sail into uncharted waters and do these things, and let's see the results. Let's see what happens. We have mobile cameras now to look at fly tipping hotspots. We just need to. Again, it's not the council that's doing the fly tipping. So what we have to do is encourage people to stop it and encourage people to report on those people that do, because it's a blight on their city, and that's what's costing us money. So it's not just the permit scheme.
But it's reminding people as well that the permit scheme is free. It's you can register very quickly online. And also, when you arrive at the household recycling centre, there are operatives there with iPads to help sign people up. So, and also reach out if you're struggling. Somebody will always be there to help you. Yeah, well, as you just mentioned, the arrival towards Cowgate, looking at the graphics, I think that's really exciting. Not only is it's safer, it's lit, it's well lit, and it directs you, where we would like visitors to go. So, you walk through into Cowgate, you'll see the fantastic artwork on the side, you'll see the cathedral in the background. Brilliant.
I've learnt a new phrase: desire lines. So when you come out, you see, this is it.
Desire lines.
Desire lines. So
I
when
thought absolutely you ran up at 11 o'clock now.
That's right. Yeah, they're the love lines, and apparently desire lines. Desire lines used to be known as love lines, and what actually happens is when you come out, what they're saying is the crossings will now be at grade. One of the issues that people have got now is going, as Katie said, is through underpasses. So if we can avoid that, everything is at grade, in other words, at surface level. Yeah. And we've also, and I'd just like a big shout out for the Friends of Peterborough Museum, because not only have they offered to design, they've also offered to pay for a piece of sculpture, so that as you come out the station, you head towards Cowgate and the museum, that piece of sculpture will be there. There'll be, as Katie said, other artwork. So the whole idea is that, and it just makes it a desirable way to come in from the station and draw people into the city centre. We want footfall, we want people in, and we want people to make that incremental spend for our businesses and for our people who live here. And also working with the combined authority. Yeah. This has been absolutely key. Is we've got local government reorganisation coming up, and whilst we are a unitary authority, we do really appreciate the support we've had from Dr. Nick Johnson and the mayoralty of the combined authority. Okay, any city, any place has to do is make sure there's sufficient land supply to grow, both in terms of homes and business. So there's an industrial plan, there's also a housing plan. The last one, I hadn't been elected long, was in 2019, and they usually run for a period of about 15 to 20 years. Having said that, the world is a rapidly changing place. We are, by many standards, the third fastest growing city in the country. So we can't rest on our laurels. Yeah. We need to refresh that plan, and we're doing it now from 2024, and that will go through to 2044. But there will be other iterations in the years to come. This is to ensure that we can grow and make sure that we achieve our ambitions as a city over the course of the next 15 to 20 years.
It talks about where businesses may develop, it talks about where homes may be built, it talks about where schools might be built, the infrastructure around them, doctors' surgeries, and as Dennis said, with the third fastest growing city in the country, we've got houses being, I think about 900-ish houses predicted to be built. 1,006 houses to be built a year, but we need to make sure the infrastructure is there. And I know my cabinet colleagues and I, when we were along with Dennis, not just us on its own without Dennis, we're having input into this document. We all said we need to make sure that the schools are there, the bus routes are there, the bus stops. so that we can plan how Peterborough will look going forward, and making sure that people have access to the facilities that they need.
The other thing as well, John, is that there is what we've agreed is for this to go to public consultation.
Yeah.
Now, we've spoken about it before. We had the Shaping Our City events last year. What we do want is this is not just our city. It's, if you pay your council tax, it's your city. And what we want people to do is have their say. So this is very much now going to public consultation, and we'd like people. You don't need to read it exhaustively, but if you get a flavour for what we're doing, the direction of travel, figuratively and literally, then that's what we want people to engage in. I'll let Katie come in, but let me just say one of the things when I became leader, I stood up and talked about being a child-friendly city for two reasons. If we're a child-friendly city, then by turn, we're a family-friendly city. So we want people to grow, to thrive, to come here and to stay here and contribute to, a circular economy. You bring business, you spend in those businesses grow, they create employment. So we do all that good stuff. But at the other end of the scale, you're probably aware that our children's services back then was rated as inadequate. Where we are today is a tangible step forward for our care leavers, for our looked after children. So being child friendly or family friendly, are we family friendly enough? Not yet, but we're on a journey. I'll let Katie describe how far we are on that journey and how far we need to go.
So, I'm passionate that children have the best start in life here in Peterborough. It's one of the things I said when I very first had discussions with Dennis about standing for election, that I wanted children to thrive here in Peterborough, and I'm privileged to be in the position I am now to help direct that. But I'm excited. There's things coming up in the pipeline. We've got our fantastic family hubs. I want to see more of those across the city. I know that the education officers are challenging schools to ensure that there's a good level of education across the city. I know that there's the added funding that's coming from the free breakfast clubs. We've got 2 of those within the city boundary. So things are changing. Ofsted have recognised that children's services in here, the ship has turned. There's still a long way to go, but the amount it's turned in such a short space of time since November 23, when children's services was graded as inadequate, is huge. And I also feel that it's something that isn't just my responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility here in Peterborough, all 60 councillors. We all have children, we all know children, and I want them to stay here, I want them to work here, I want them to have their own children here, and I want them to realise that Peterborough is the best city to live in. So I was teaching, and we were told it's not going to affect schools, it's not going to affect teachers. Keep going, head down, just wash your hands a little bit more. We had regimented washing schedules. Every 10 minutes we had to line the children up at the sink, wash their hands, and sit back down again and then another 10 minutes, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. As a teacher, I gave up my holidays willingly, gave up my half term willingly, so that I could teach and ensure that key workers, doctors, nurses, frontline staff could do their jobs, their vital jobs, and I was happy to do so, because it was my effort, it's what I could do to help. My children, as a teacher, my children attended the key worker schools, but you've heard many times they say COVID's over. It's not. and the impacts are still being felt. And I think we need to realise that. And in schools in general, the children now coming through into primary school, that's the first cohort of children that would have been born during or just after the COVID period. Stopping of key nursery groups, play groups, support for parents. And it's something that, you know, when I've spoken to officers, that we just need to keep remembering this still having an impact. And I'm not an economist, you know, my portfolio isn't the town centre, but from meetings that I've been in, there's been an impact on, you know, the type of shopping we all do. I myself am guilty of online shopping more than actually physically coming and shopping. So thinking that it's only 5 years ago is crazy, because it seems a world away. Yeah. When we're all clapping and banging on a Thursday and, you know, doing phonics letters and my children drawing chalk words all over the pavements, you know, and it's it's astounding.
You, Dennis, where were you 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I was a counsellor, and it was strange because there was nothing to do council-wise until July, and then everybody, whether it was their business rates, whether it was their claims, and all of a sudden, I mean, from doing nothing for 3 months, it suddenly went absolutely crazy. And I don't mind, I admit, I was probably getting 7, 8, 9 calls a day at that time. What I did in the meantime is I had a call, excuse me, nothing to do with being a counsellor, and I volunteered at the food bank, because the only one that was open was actually at Dogsthorpe Methodist Church, and they said, would you like to go? And I said, sure. And also what I did was I did some voluntary work for the Salvation Army, where what I was doing was transporting victims of modern slavery from places of lack of safety to places of safety around the country. And I remember one journey picking somebody up from Thorpe Lodge Hotel on is it Thorpe Road? I think it's Thorpe Road.
I think it is, yeah.
And I took them into central London in just over an hour.
Wow.
Because there was no traffic.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen traffic like that since I've been driving since the 70s.
Yeah.
So you had a real mix. You saw on the television the devastation, the elderly people who were dying in care homes, and yet my personal experience, and if you also remember, the weather was absolutely glorious. It was absolutely glorious in that time. So, you know, and the COVID inquiry, there's obviously lots of things. All I can relate to, John, is my personal experience. And I was lucky. I didn't lose anybody close to me, and everybody came through the whole thing.